People who have followed crime a day have accused me of being a bot. Never a Russian bot, but a bot. People have accused me of being a
computer algorithm,
disgruntled prosecutor. They don't know who I am, but I promise I'm human. For the last 8 years, I've been practicing as a criminal defense attorney in Connecticut. In the 1980s, the Department of Justice set out to count how many federal crimes there were. How many crimes are there? The Department of Justice put a team on it and ultimately had to abandon the project with nothing more than an estimate. Crime a Day tries to do what the DOJ didn't do, which is to count every act that is a crime under federal law. During the day, I represent clients in criminal matters, but at night, when the day's over, I spend hours reading the Code of Federal Regulations, reading statutes, reading legislative history. That process involves hours of analysis. Ultimately, it produces 140 characters of a tweet with a silly-sounding crime. There are other laws that are still on the books from hundreds of years ago that were inspired by uniquely New York things. What I found was, most of the time, these laws grow out of a legitimate need or a legitimate problem, but have been drafted in such a way that they rope in conduct which really shouldn't be criminal. It's a crime to bring an unshucked ear of corn out of New York into any other state. One of the things every first-year law student learns is that every crime requires an actus reus, which is the act that you have to commit, and the mens rea, which is the mental state you have to have when you commit the act. Mens rea asks, what was in your head when you killed that other person? Did you do it on purpose? Did you do it in self-defense? Did you do it by accident? Theoretically, it can mean that you are or are not a criminal. If there are hundreds of thousands of laws, and if it doesn't matter whether you know the law or you don't know the law, you can be charged with a crime that you had no reason to believe existed. In 1986, a jazz musician named Kirk Lightsey was trying to get on the subway. His hand came too close to a passenger's purse, and he was charged with the jostling statute, to put your hand on somebody's purse or too close to their purse. And that creates a problem. While we trust law enforcement officers to exercise the right decisions, if a law enforcement officer were to choose to target an individual for an improper reason, they could pick the defendant first and the crime second. Some people that have followed crime a day have raised the prospect that crime a day itself might be a crime. I haven't found any statute that prohibits listing the statutes that Congress itself has passed or the regulations that regulators have issued. A local example of this explosion of criminal laws is one of the older penal laws in New York prohibits wearing unusual or unnatural attire. What does that mean? Attire has been construed to mean a man wearing women's clothing. A prosecutor decides whether your clothes are unusual or unnatural. That creates a little bit of fear in people to realize that just by living, I could potentially be charged with a crime. Legislative inertia to not repeal old statutes is fine as long as we assume that those statutes are not going to be used to prosecute people because they're vague. It's a crime to board a ship that's about to arrive but hasn't arrived at shore yet. It has to do with a time in history when people were essentially being kidnapped off ships. That crime was dusted off and used fairly recently to prosecute Greenpeace activists because they were trying to unfurl a banner on a ship. I don't think that they imagined that they were going to be charged under federal law for early boarding of a ship. That risk that a person could be prosecuted for a political reason, a racial reason, a religious reason, it's too great of a risk for us to not address it. And that's why we shouldn't leave all of these criminal possibilities on the table. And we should start paring them back. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that everybody has committed a federal crime, because so many of them don't require an evil state of mind when you're doing them. Things like throwing balls at somebody's head while they're in public to humiliate them. Supposedly, carnival workers were getting mistreated. In a national park, it's a federal crime to make an unreasonable gesture to a passing horse. That raises questions. Unreasonable to who? The horse? Should it be a crime? I don't know, but it is. The future of crime a day is to keep doing exactly what it's been doing. I think as long as it's still making me laugh and be scared all at the same time, then I'm the right person to keep doing it. And based on conservative estimates, I have a couple hundred years left to go.